Hello, welcome to episode 3 of Two's a Crowd. I'll explain the hat in a minute. This is not normal wardrobe, I know. Um, I've tried to film this intro a bajillion gazillion times, but I simply have so much to say, so I'm just gonna try to make this episode so short and sweet, but it won't be. But I'm gonna try for you. So, today I'm talking about season 1 of Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls, along with The Outer Banks, is like tied for number one first place favorite show in my heart. So this is like huge for me. Obviously, like I bought merch. Like I'm here. Like I love Gravity Falls. um, for those of you who don't know anything about this show, it's a Disney show that aired on Disney XD from like 2012 to 2016, and it revolves around like mysteries, paranormal, supernatural stuff, just like weirdness and like kids going on adventures and like figuring out different mystery stuff. It's like super fun. And was so up my alley as a kid. But like something I love so much about this show is I watched it as a kid, like both seasons. There's two seasons. Just talking about season 1 today, but I watched it as a kid, and as a like when you're a kid watching it, it's enjoyable and like it's so fun to see all the mystery stuff. But then you go back when you're older, like I'm 17 now, and looking back, there's so much added lore to it that completely I just missed as a kid. Because when you're in like the online fandom of it, there's so much more that everyone's like noticing and pointing out and putting together that I completely missed as a kid. So it's like there's two whole separate viewing experiences of it, which is so fun. So how I'm going to do this today is I'm going to give you a little general info, introduce the characters and the general plot of the series, and then I'm going to go through all the episodes of season 1 briefly and give you a kind of feel of how like me as a kid, how I experienced the show. And then I'm going to go back through every episode and go through all the little details and like stuff that I missed as a kid that makes the show so much more interesting and have such a active fan base online. And the reason I'm doing this episode actually is because the Book of Bill just came out, which is there are like a few books that Alex Hirsch, the creator of the show, has released that are like in the universe of the show, but a new one literally just came out, and it's been a while since something's been like literally added to the lore. I obviously haven't read it yet. It came out like last week maybe, so I don't know when I'll read it, but I want to. So maybe I'll do an episode on the Book of Bill if it's really important. But I guess I'll talk more about that at the end when I've really spoken about who Bill is. But anyway, I'm just going to quickly introduce the characters to you and introduce the plot. Or just like the general information you need to know going in. So there are like the three main characters are Dipper Pines, Mabel Pines, and Stanford Pines, allegedly, who they all call Grunkle Stan because he's their great uncle, and Dipper and Mabel are twins. So the whole thing is that Dipper and Mabel live in Piedmont, California, and they are going up to Oregon, the town called Gravity Falls in Oregon, which is not real, obviously, but it's in the show. They're going to Gravity Falls, Oregon, to visit their Grunkle Stan. And, okay, a little bit about the characters. Dipper is very book smart. He's a nerd. He's, like, in his own head a lot. He loves investigating paranormal, supernatural, mystery stuff. And he's, like, cannot emphasize how much of a nerd he is. And he cares a lot about what other people think. And then there's Mabel, who deeply does not care what other people think. She's a very romantic girl. She's always got a new boyfriend. She's very silly, lighthearted, like does her own thing 100% of the time. She's completely just like she's just like weird, and it's so awesome. They're both 12 years old, by the way. I should have said that before. But like, she's giving like weird 12-year-old girl before like society has like impacted her enough for her to stop being weird. And that's just like the awesome part about it. I just love Mabel so much. But I also love Dipper deeply. They're just like the best characters. And then their grunkle Stan, Stanford Pines, allegedly. He is old. I don't know how old he is, 80, 70 maybe, but he's old. And he's like their grandma's sister, to be clear, I'm pretty sure. And he's like jaded, sort of just grumpy. He's like a con artist, like literally. Um, but like he has like a soft spot for the kids, and like every once in a while he'll let it show, and it's very sweet. But so he lives in Gravity Falls, Oregon, and he runs this little shop called the Mystery Shack, and it's essentially like a tourist trap where people come in to see all these like real like mystery things, but they're literally all like man-made. Like he fakes these like anomalies and like supernatural paranormal things, but they're like he's literally just like creating them. So he's like scamming everyone, but it's really funny because like in the town of Gravity Falls there's so much real like mystery stuff happening, and he's got this fake mystery shack going on. It's hilarious. So yeah, that's where they live. So they're like living in like the top floor of the mystery shack, and it's just like this little shop with all this stuff. And so then the two like secondary main characters, but like pretty much main characters as well, are two employees of the shop. I'm pretty sure they both work there. I know Wendy does. It's Wendy and Seuss. I don't actually know if Seuss works there. I think he does. Don't go. No, he definitely does. Whatever. Seuss is like in his 20s maybe. He's giving like 20-year-old guy who lives in his parents' basement, plays video games all day. So, and he's like a big idiot, but like he's like got a heart of gold. Like we love Seuss. He's the heart of the show. And he's so loyal, deeply loyal, and he will like protect those kids with his life. And then there's Wendy, who is probably like 16 maybe. I don't know. She's like in high school. And she's like the cool high school girl. Like she's giving like Tumblr grunge sort of vibe. And she's just really cool, but she's really sweet. She's just awesome. And Dipper is in love with her. That's like throughout the whole show, Dipper's in love with her, but he's like not telling her because he's so scared, and he's so scared of what people think, literally. And she also has a boyfriend named Robbie, who's like an emo guy, and he's like, I don't really care, like he's really nonchalant and like doesn't treat her right. But at one point they literally think he's a zombie, so that's sort of his vibe. And like Dipper and him are always sort of like at odds because they're like fighting over Wendy. And then like background characters, Wendy's got like a whole group of friends. There's like 3 other people that are like they're one of them's named like Tanya or something. Tasha, I don't know. Thompson's one of them. I don't know. There's some random kids. And then there's a bunch of like townsfolk. There's like Lazy Susan, Old Man McGucket, Toby Determined. There's that's all I remember. So yeah, there's like a bunch of characters there. And yeah, I think that's all the background we need. I think we can get into the episodes now. So yeah, let's just start. I'm gonna just generally like zoom through these, because in all honesty, a lot of season 1 is sort of filler episodes, although they're still like jolly and like such a good time. Their plots are very much just like, this is the magical creature of the episode, we're investigating it, chaos ensues, whatever. So yeah, let's get into it. Tourist Trapped is episode 1, which iconic title. Anyway, in this episode, they introduce everything that I just introduced. They introduce the characters, the Mystery Shack, the town, all of that stuff. And then they fight gnomes. Gnomes are the character of the episode. Mabel starts dating a gnome disguised as a man, and she thinks she's like dating this boy, and turns out he is gnomes stacked on top of each other, and they're evil, and they like tried to kidnap her, question mark. And Dipper and her, oh, okay, I guess I should say this. Dipper finds this journal hidden in a tree, which is really mysterious and weird. And in it's labeled Journal 3. Y'all, I literally, okay, quick intermission. I made this. Like, they sell Journal 3s. Like, there's a Journal 3 book, similar to, like, the Book of Bill, as I mentioned, that are literally published as Gravity Falls merch. But I decided to go the free route and make one myself. And, like, this isn't, like, something I just glued onto a notebook that I already had. I genuinely made this. I bound this book myself. I cut up a shirt and made the cover. I put paper on this. Like, I went in so deep. I did the first few pages. Like, I've got, like, writing in here. Like, I went so hard into this. So, yeah. I'm, like, literally Dipper Pines right now. Anyway. That's so embarrassing. But, hey, I'm unapologetic. Anyway, he finds this in a tree. And it's got all this stuff in it about all these different monsters and, like, creatures and paranormal stuff happening in the town. And he's like, this is awesome. Because that's, like, so him. And he's like, who is the author? And the whole thing is, like, he's trying to find out who the author is. Like, throughout the whole show, that's a big thing. He's like, who wrote these journals? I need to meet him. Anyway. So he finds that, and in there's a page about gnomes, and they figure out how to defeat the gnomes. So, there you go. That's episode 1. Episode 2, Legend of the Gobblewonker, is them going on a boating adventure, and it's essentially like the Loch Ness Monster, but they call it the Gobblewonker, and they're trying to find this little, like, water monster. And that's a really funny episode, might I add. Episode 3 is called Headhunters. In this episode, they find like an abandoned wax museum, and they end up getting really into it, and Mabel makes a wax statue of Grunkle Stan, and it's like a whole thing. And then, like, the statue ends up falling apart or something, and they hold a funeral for the statue. This episode is quite important, but again, right now I'm just doing the general overview of each episode as I would have viewed it as a kid. But we'll come back to, like, the deep lore of this episode. Then we have episode 4, The Hand That Rocks the Mabel, which is essentially, she meets this little 9-year-old, apparently. I thought he was, like, 30, but he's 9, and his name is Gideon Gleeful, and he's a very important character, but in this episode, he's just introduced, and him and Mabel start dating, but he's, like, weird, and all this stuff, and so they're, like, exposing this, like, weirdo kid. But he is an important character and comes back later. Then we have episode 5, The Inconveniencing, which is they explore a haunted convenience store, and Dipper's, like, trying to, like, show off to Wendy. Then episode 6 is Dipper versus Manliness, which is a great episode. Basically, Dipper's feeling not manly. 'Cause, like, there's this, like, man who's, like, stronger than him or something, and he feels very intimidated. So he spends the whole episode trying to, like, prove his manliness. And then at some point, okay, he meets these bears who can talk, and they're, like, really manly. And the bears try to make him do something that he doesn't want to do, and he's like, no, I won't do it. And then he goes back and he goes to Grunkle Stan and he's like, I'm, like, so not a man because, like, I didn't do this thing. And Grunkle Stan is like, standing up for yourself is manly. And the whole message of the episode is, like, toxic masculinity is stupid. And being a man is, like, you know, standing up for what you think is right. And that's a really cute episode. So we love that. We love that for Disney. Episode 7 is called Double Dipper. And in this one, they're like holding a party for something, and Dipper is trying to flirt with Wendy again, and he needs to be in 2 places at once where he has like things to do, but he's also trying to flirt with Wendy, so he literally clones himself like with a paper copier. Love that. And like it ends up going wrong. He ends up like cloning himself too many times, and then there's all these Dippers and they can't tell who's the right one. You know how it goes. And then in this episode, Mabel and her friends are named Candy and Grenda? I don't know. But her and her friends are so awesome. Like, for real. Like, just love them. Like, they're just so weird. I love them. Then we have episode 8, I think. Maybe 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, episode 8 is called Irrational Treasure. They basically find out that the founder of Gravity Falls is not the actual founder, and they go on a little hunt to find the real founder. So they're going through like all these archives and like the library. Love it. As a history girly, love it. And then they find out that the actual founder of the town is Quentin Tremblay, who was the eighth and a half, there we go, president of the United States. I don't remember exactly what the explanation of that was. Watch the episode to find out. But this is the episode where that meme of Dipper holding the dollar, or it's like a negative dollar bill, and he goes, "Wow, this is worthless." You know that meme? That's from this episode. Then we have episode 9, I think, The Time Traveler's Pig, in which they're at a carnival, and Dipper is again trying to impress Wendy. And he's trying to like do one of the carnival games, but it's like not working, and he ends up like giving her a black eye, I think. And so he finds this guy named Blendon Blandon, or I don't know, he meets him at some point in the episode, but he essentially time travels back to like make it not happen, and it's like all this chaos because he keeps going back, and then things keep going wrong, and he keeps going back again and again and again. And they just like do all this, the typical time travel nonsense. Dipper and Mabel are just like going crazy. And this is the episode where Mabel gets Waddles the pig, which is an important character. Excuse me. Then we have episode 10, Fight Fighters. This episode is just like there's a video game where they're fighting and the little video game guys come to life. That's pretty much the whole episode. That's like one of the worst episodes. Gotta be so honest. Then episode 11, I think, is called Little Dipper. Right? Yeah. I got you off. I'm on the wrong episode number. I don't know. But Little Dipper is about Mabel's taller than Dipper, so Dipper tries to grow taller. That's what I got from that episode. Then episode 12 is Summerween. I love this episode. Basically, it's about, since the show takes place in the summer, Halloween obviously isn't gonna happen, but like Halloween is so Gravity Falls. So in Gravity Falls, they have a separate holiday called Summerween, which they basically just celebrate Halloween again, but in the summer, which is so awesome. And so this episode's all about, it's like a Halloween episode, it just takes place in the summer. And then there's this like creepy candy monster that's like hunting them down. He's like, you need to get 500 pieces of candy before the night ends. And so like it's this whole thing, but then there's also this party that Wendy is going to, that she invited Dipper to, and so like Dipper wants to go to the party, but Mabel wants him to go trick-or-treating with her, because the whole thing is like Mabel wants to stay a kid forever and like do the goofy kid stuff, and Dipper like wants to go to the party. It's like because he cares about what people think, I'm telling you. But yeah. So it's a whole thing of like him trying to like race them through getting the candy so that he can get to the party later, and then like Mabel's really hurt by that. It's such a beautiful episode. I love this episode. And he ends up like they've got like a wagon full of candy, and he ends up like pushing it into some bushes because Wendy's car is pulling up, and she's like, "Oh hey Dipper, what's going on?" And he's trying to pretend like he's not trick-or-treating because he wants to seem like cool and like whatever. And she's like, "Okay, whatever, see you at the party later." And he's like, "Yep." And then he ended up losing all the candy, and so the candy monster comes after them, and it's a whole thing. But it's such a great episode. It's got the Halloween aesthetic. It's so good. So anyway, love Summerween. Then we have Boss Mabel. Also, I should add, I'm pretty sure that was like the mid-season finale, because they did mid-season finales for both seasons. And I'm pretty sure up until this point these were like weekly episodes, but after the mid-season finale of season 1, the episodes were very like just like whenever. They weren't on a schedule really, which is why it took a whole year for this season to come out. So yeah. So the next episode is Boss Mabel, so this is like the first episode back from the break. Boss Mabel is basically Mabel runs the Mystery Shack, and so she's like a tyrannical, I'm pretty sure if I'm remembering right, she's just like leading the Mystery Shack like a boss, but she's like goofy with it, you know. Then we have the episode Bottomless Pit. I have like a love-hate relationship with this episode because it's funny and like it's interesting, but it's like the filler episode of all filler episodes. The whole vibe of it is that there's a bottomless pit in Gravity Falls, and they literally fall into it, and so they're just like falling for the entire episode, and while they're falling they're telling stories. So they tell like 3 different stories, I'm pretty sure, but like it's literally just like telling stories to tell stories. It has nothing to do with the overarching plot of the series, so that's why it's sort of like whatever, but like it's funny, so I'll let them have it. The next episode is, I've completely lost what number I'm on. 12, 13, 14, 15, I think? 15, 16, 18, 19, 20. Yep. Episode 15 is called The Deep End, and in this episode, Mabel finds a mermaid boyfriend in the town swimming pool. or like I don't know. I don't know how he ends up in the town swimming pool, but he does. And so the whole episode is her trying to break the merman out of the swimming pool. And it's like so dramatic. But it's like awesome. So yeah, there's that. Then we have Carpet Diem, because like, it's like Carpe Diem, but it's about carpet. Anyway, that's episode 16. Yep, I think so. Wait, 17, 18, 19, 20. No. Hold on. What was the last one? 13, 14, 15, 16. This is 16. This is episode 16, Carpet Diem. And in this room, they find an empty room in the Mystery Shack because Dipper and Mabel share a room. And so in this episode, they're competing to decide who gets the new room. That's what happens. And then there's something weird happens with the carpet. There's like static on it. I just remember this. There's like static on the carpet and they like switch bodies or something. Anyway. Then we have Boys Crazy. That's episode 17, and this Boys Crazy is like the name of this fictional boy band that Mabel's obsessed with, and so the whole episode is about her discovering that they are clones? They're either clones or like there's some sort of, I think they're clones. They're basically being held against their will, and Mabel's trying to free them of that life, which is literally so funny because like this came out around the time of One Direction. This was around like probably Midnight Memories era. So you know, I don't know how big the overlap of 1D fandom and Gravity Falls fandom is, but there's probably some overlap. And like people were literally trying to like free One Direction of like their managers and stuff. And so it's so funny that they did this of her Mabel trying to free Boys Crazy from like their management and stuff. It's so funny. And then episode 18 is called Land Before Swine, period. And in this episode, they're trying to save Waddles. I wrote down saving Waddles, time traveling back. That was my summary of this episode. I don't remember what they're saving Waddles from, but they're saving Waddles, and they basically time travel back to like different periods of time. Like I'm pretty sure they go to like the dinosaurs, like prehistoric sort of vibe. And it's just like, the chaos of like time traveling back and whatnot. Then, ooh, here we go. Episode 19 and 20 are like a two-parter kind of. Like episode 19 ends with like to be continued into episode 20, and then that's the end of the season. And this is sort of, these two episodes are where we get into like the real deal of Gravity Falls that really comes through in season 2. But again, I'm just doing the basic overview right now. So, episode 19 is called Dreamscapers, and basically Gideon Gleeful, who we mentioned earlier, who's like the maniac 9-year-old, he is trying to take over the Mystery Shack. And so, to do so, he needs like a code of some sort to a safe to like get whatever papers owns the Mystery Shack, I'm pretty sure. And so what he decides to do is summon a demon named Bill Cipher, who's very important, to invade Grunkle Stan's mind to get the code to open the thing to own the Mystery Shack. And so the whole episode is basically Gideon's trying to do that, and he sends Bill Cipher to do it. So, like, Bill Cipher's in Stan's mind. Wow. That was so crazy. Wow. Wow. Dipper, Mabel, Seuss, maybe Wendy? I'm not sure. I'm not sure who all is there. They are also in Stan's mind trying to fight back. You know how it is. So yeah, it's like they're trying to compete to like stop Bill from seeing the cipher, or not the cipher, the code in Stan's mind, so that they can keep the Mystery Shack. And then there's also like a subplot of the episode where in the beginning, Dipper feels like Grunkle Stan literally hates him, and because he feels like Grunkle Stan's always making him do stuff, like he makes him clean up the dishes while like Mabel doesn't have to do it, and he's like doing all this stuff to Dipper, and he feels like very like targeted by him, I guess. And so that's like a subconscious thing happening throughout the subplot thing happening throughout the episode. But then like as they're in Stan's mind, Dipper sees a memory that Stan has of like being like, I just know that Dipper was like, this is very much like paraphrasing what he said, but he's basically saying that like he knows Dipper has so much potential and he's like made for more, that he like expects a lot out of him so that he can like reach his full potential. And it ends up being like a really sweet thing. So yeah, that's Dreamscapers. And then the last episode of season 1 is called Gideon Rises. This episode is huge, and when I circle back, I'm going to talk about a lot about this one, but basically, in the end of the last episode, Gideon gets the Mystery Shack. He gets this, the code and whatnot. And so this episode starts with them all living in Seuss's abuela's basement. Really funny. And so this episode is basically the big final battle between Dipper and Mabel and Gideon. And Gideon's got this like huge robot version of himself that he's like trying to like get them with, but they're like fighting back. And it's like a crazy season finale, because they're trying to get back the Mystery Shack. So really cool. Yeah. And then at the very end of this episode, throughout the season, like Dipper's had Journal 3. And it's been like a big question of like, what's up with the journals? Like, is there a 1 and 2? Are there more than 3? What's going on? At the very end of this episode, Grunkle Stan, or like, Dipper gives Grunkle Stan the 3rd journal and is like, here you go. Like, I don't want it anymore. I'm done with all this. And Grunkle Stan's like, yeah, it's for the best. And then the season ends with a scene of Uncle Sam going into this hidden layer under the Mystery Shack with the journal. And he pulls out journals 1 and 2, which he also has, and then he opens them all up to like a little blueprint thing that is like once you have all 3 journals, it matches up together and it like shows you the full picture. And he says, "Finally, I have all 3 journals. Like, all my work has been paying off." And then he says, "Here we go." And then the season ends. And it's like, what? What? Crazy. It's like, what's going on with Uncle Stan? So yeah. That is like the child's view, like stuff goes over your head version of season 1. Now I'm gonna go through all of like the lore that people online have decoded and all this stuff. So yeah, and we're gonna go ahead and start right. Oh my god, I'm already. There's a huge spider on my bed, guys. Oh my god, why is that on my bed? Oh my god. Also, I'm already 30 minutes and I'm so sorry, but I need to kill this with journal 3. Guys, where is it? Ew. Ew. Guys, this is so scary. I hate this. Why is this here? Why is this here? It's on my bed, so I can't even like kill it. It's not even. Okay, this is so not the topic I'm supposed to be talking about. I'm so sorry, y'all. Guys, it's. Oh my god, this is terrifying. It's dead. It's dead. Okay, we're good, y'all. Whew! Spooky. Anyway, we're already 30 minutes in. I'm so sorry that took so long, but I'm gonna go through and talk about the more details that there are. So, starting off with the theme song. The theme song is where we sort of get introduced to the idea of ciphers, which as a kid did not even know this was a part of the show. But at the end of every episode, there is a little coded message that looks like gibberish to the blind eye, but once decoded, gives you a message. So, this is sort of introduced in the title sequence of the show, in which at the very end of the theme song, there's like a weird, like backwards sounding thing that people picked up on. They were like, wait, this is like backwards. And so they got the audio, they flipped it, and it said 3 letters back. And so that was the basis, like, the foundation of all the ciphers that then came to be. So this introduced us to the first cipher, used in like the first 7 episodes, which is called the Caesar cipher. And this is essentially just like, if you take the normal alphabet, and then under it you put the alphabet again, but then you like shift it 3 letters, that's what it becomes. So like, I have it written in here somewhere. To give you an example, like the letter A in the Caesar cipher would be written as a D, because that's like 3 letters shifted, if you see what I mean. So that gave us the Caesar cipher. So at the end of episode 1, there's a little coded message, which was written as, let me tell you, ZHOFRPH space WR space JUDYLWIB space. I don't know if I said that right. Hold on. It's JUDYLWB. Is that what I said? Yeah, it is. Anyway, space IDOOV. And that, using the Caesar cipher, translates to Welcome to Gravity Falls. And so people figured that out quite quickly, I think. I don't know. And that sort of unlocked a whole world of, like, there became messages happening in coded things that general audience viewers weren't seeing, but, like, the specific people who knew about it were picking up on. And so there was, like, foreshadowing happening. There was, like, little spooky things being revealed that, like, people became so invested in the show because there were these weird coded things happening, while it would be a goofy, fun episode about, like, finding a sea monster and all this stuff. But it would be giving us random, like, darker hints sort of thing. So, yeah. The theme song introduces the Caesar cipher, 3 letters back, and then in the opening sequence it also has like it shows like a close-up of journal 3, just as a little thing of whatever. They just put it in there, and in there they have a coded message in the Caesar cipher that literally translates to Stan is not what he seems, which I think is so crazy. Because, like, season 1, you don't really get a lot of that vibe until the very end when you see Stan go into the hidden bunker and you're like, wait, like, what's going on here? But people who knew about the code were, like, watching this whole season being like, Stan is not what he seems. So, like, all of this is just, like, a facade. It's, like, crazy. And then also shown in the opening sequence is Bill Cipher, the little triangle man. He's drawn into the journal, and so he's like been there from the beginning, but he's just like not brought up until episode 19. So yeah, that's huge. Okay, then going back through again, episode 1, Dipper finds journal 3, which is like the whole basis of the show. And like that's huge. Then in episode 2, this is like there's a whole side, I don't even know what to call it, like a theory, I guess, that happened all throughout season 1 about Stan having a twin brother. And so a lot of these hints, most of these like little things I didn't pick up on a kid are either leading to the theory of the twin brother or hinting at Bill Cipher stuff or hinting at Stan not being what he seems. Those are the general things that are in the ciphers and stuff. So we know Stan in episode 1 as Stanford Pines. That's how he's introduced. But in episode 2, it shows Stan's car, and on the license plate, it's like in the background, but it shows it says Stanley Mobile. And so people are like, who's Stanley? His name's Stanford. So like, what's going on with that? And so that's when people started, like, again, in 2012 when this was happening live, I was so not connected to this world. But from what I understand, this is when people started to get the vibe that maybe he has like a twin brother who's like missing or something, and his name's Stanley. And so people started to like think of that. Then the very next episode, Headhunters, which is with all the wax figures and stuff, Mabel makes a wax figure of Stanford, and his reaction is very weird. And people who were thinking about the twin theory at this time were like, this is like very much giving he's shocked at seeing a twin version of himself. Because like she shows him the wax figure and he literally like falls to the floor and is like, oh my god. Because like he has a twin brother and he's like not seen himself, like his twin version. You feel what I'm saying? And then the wax figure ends up like crumbling or something, like it ends up getting destroyed, and they hold a funeral for it, and Stan is like so distraught, and it's just like really out of character for him to be acting that way about like a random wax figure. And so people thought that he had a twin brother at some point, like we don't know what happened to him, but it was just like bringing up memories of that situation. So that's a gag. Also, in this episode, in the background, there's an Easter egg. You can see Blendon Blandon, the time traveler guy who comes back in a later episode. You can see him in the background of a shot, which is so cute. Because he's like time traveling into that spot and then he goes out. Anyway, then a few episodes goes by. Not really important. Talking about Blendon Blandon. In the episode The Time Traveler's Pig, which is episode 9, there's one of the times that they time travel back to is the past, like a past time outside of the Mystery Shack. And so they probably go like 30 or 40 years back. Probably 40, closer to 40. And they're just like, in like the scene, they're just like panicking trying to time travel to the right spot, but there's like a random little clip of who at the time we're meant to believe is like Grunkle Stan as a younger version of himself peeking out the door and like looking confused. But at some other point in season 1, there's also another flashback of Grunkle Stan, and the two don't look the same. But it's like, they had like, one of them had like a different chin shape, they had like different haircuts, and so that was another hint. I'm just gonna going into season 2, it was like, it's a whole thing that, like, yes, Stan has a twin brother. The twin brother is Stanford. Grunkle Stan is Stan Lee. He's just posing as Stanford, um, so that people, like, don't notice his disappearance and stuff. And so it turns out that, like, the flashback was Stanford, because his twin brother, because Stanford lived in the Mystery Shack, and then Grunkle Stan came, and then oh my god, it's so confusing. Grunkle Stan came to the Mystery Shack, Ford disappeared, and then Grunkle Stan moved in. So, like, Ford, like, that was Ford canonically, because Grunkle Stan wouldn't have been living there back then. Anyway, they also have different glasses, so that's another thing. But there's so much lore. So we literally, like, see Ford in that episode, but we didn't know that because we think it's Stan. Then, in the next episode, there's a tax fraud joke, which there's a lot of tax fraud jokes because Stan is constantly claiming that he commits tax fraud, which is very funny. But it's always just written off as, like, he's just, like, he's just committing tax fraud, like, because he's just, like, that kind of guy. But he's, like, literally committing tax fraud because he's pretending to be his brother. He's pretending to be Stanford, but he isn't. And so that's why he's committing tax fraud. Anyway, then, yada yada yada, a few episodes. In episode, oh my god, I can't deal with these numbers. 16? In episode 16, Carpet Diem. I believe it's this episode, I'm not actually entirely sure, but it's at some point around here where I'm pretty sure it's when they find that new room in the Mystery Shack. Grunkle Stan sees some glasses sitting on the shelf, and he picks them up, and he, like, takes them with him. And then there's a later shot in the episode of him sitting on the couch in the living room, like, looking at the glasses, like, as if he's, like, remembering the person that wore them, because they're Ford's glasses. And people picked up on that like crazy. And so, like, there was this huge theory at this time going on about, like, him having a twin brother. Me completely went over my head. Like, I had no clue. So anyway, love that. And so, yeah, like, Ford's glasses, that's a whole thing. And then whatever. Episode 19, so, like, the episode before the last episode, is when Bill Cipher first shows up. His appearance is huge because he's just, like, so spooky, and he becomes the big villain of season 2. But in that episode, he refers to Soos, Dipper, and Mabel as, quote, ? Shooting star and pine tree, which those symbols are important because there's this image that's in the journal, and it's even in the opening theme, like the opening title sequence, of Bill Cipher, the triangle, and then the circle around it with a bunch of little symbols, which eventually comes back in, like, the last episode of season 2 as, like, the way that they defeat Bill. But each of the symbols correlates to a person, and ? Is Soos because Soos always wears the shirt with the question mark on it. Shooting star is Mabel because Mabel's iconic shooting star sweater. And then pine tree is Dipper because it's his pine tree hat. And so that sort of solidified that for people. And so, like, people began to look more into, like, the images on that. And one of them is, like Wendy's one of them. Grunkle Stan's Fez symbol is one of them. And then Ford's glasses is one of them. And so people are, like, at this point, like, for sure he has a twin brother. Anyway. Then at the very end, obviously, Stan gets the 3 journals. It's revealed that he's been sort of behind this the whole time, that he's also looking for the journals, but we don't know what his motives are at this point. It's made to seem like he's a little bit evil for this. Spoiler alert, he's not. He's just trying to figure out a way to bring back Ford from the dimensional portal that he fell into. So, yeah. But it's, like, a really ominous ending. So now, to quickly wrap this long video up, I'm gonna go through all of the coded messages that are at all important to the season. A lot of them are just silly jokes that like correspond with the episode. Like the Summerween episode, the message at the end is something like brought to you by Homework the candy, like something like that. But yeah, the episode 1 coded message is just welcome to Gravity Falls. Cute. Then in Double Dipper, that's like 7 or 8 episodes in, the coded message is Mr. Caesarian will be out next week. Mr. Atbash will substitute, which was huge because obviously the Caesar cipher was the one that had been used for the first 8 episodes, or 7 or whatever. And that's the only one that was like known. And so then the coded message in this episode hints that like next week there's going to be a different cipher. So it's not going to be the Caesar cipher, and it ended up being the Atbash cipher, which is what Mr. Atbash will sub. That's like what that refers to. And the Atbash cipher is similar to the Caesar cipher. It's just another like letter swapping one, but instead of being 3 letters shifted, it's just the alphabet completely reversed. So like A would be Z, and like B would be Y, that kind of thing. That's Atbash. And I don't know how people figured that out. I'm pretty sure they just did, because it's not that hard. It's just the alphabet flipped. But yeah. Then in the episode Irrational Treasure, there's a number coded message, which was the first one of those, which uses it's called like A1Z26, because it's just literally like the number 1 corresponds to A, 2 corresponds to B, 26 corresponds to Z. That's the cipher. And using that cipher, there was a message that said blind, and there's a whole thing called the Society of the Blind Eye, which comes back in season 2 and is really important, but this is like the first sort of hint at that. Then in the episode Boss Mabel, this at this point I think was still using the Atbash cipher. The coded message was heavy is the head that wears the fez, which is Grunkle Stan. He's the head that wears the fez. Then Land Before Swine, the coded message is lies. Gag. Crazy. And then the episode Gideon Rises has a bunch of ciphers. Because there's like the one at the very end of the episode, and then there's a bunch throughout. But here are a few of them. One says Bill is watching. One says reverse the ciphers. One says the portal when completed will open a gateway to info. Oh my god, I can't read my own writing. Let me try it one more time. The portal, when completed, will open a gateway to infinite new worlds and herald a new era in mankind's understanding of the universe. Plus, it will probably get girls to start talking to me finally. That's a long one. And then the final message is search for the blind eye. As I mentioned, that comes back in season 2. So yeah, there, as you can see, like these ciphers, like although a lot of them in this season are lighthearted and fun, every once in a while there's a bit of a like mysterious one that just adds such a depth to the show that a lot of Disney shows at the time did not have at all. And for like people who like mystery stuff and like ghost hunting and like feeling like they're like solving a crime, like this is just awesome. So like that's all I can really say. But it really got people involved and like dedicated to these episodes. And so I think it's like a huge part of why this show became so huge. And that's not even, so there's like, let me go back. Because I'm pretty sure in season 1, the first third of the episodes use Caesar cipher, the second half, or the second third use the Atbash cipher, and then I'm pretty sure that the last third use the A1Z26 cipher. But then I think season 2 uses the Vigenere, oh my god, that was not right. Was it Vigenere cipher? Which is so much more complicated, but I'll get that in the next episode, y'all. There's also the author symbol cipher, which is basically just like, it's literally just like symbols that represent each letter, and people figured it out somehow. I guess it's in the journal. It's like there's like a circle code for it for like all 26 of the symbols, but some of the letters don't even have symbols. It's so confusing. But it really made it all feel real, and it was really cool. And I cannot believe I've spent 50 minutes talking about this. I need to go, actually. But I'll be back at some point with a season 2 video, which, like, I'm frightened to see how long that would take. Because, as I said, this is not even, like, my favorite season. There's just so much lore, guys. It's so cool. So, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say for now. Bye, guys. Yeah.